Hi, I'm Oisin Brown, and this is the Eurostep on CRC. Today I'm joined by Killian Loftus.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And we're going to preview this year's free agency 2018. This is the NBA free agency, of course. So the honourable mentions, these are the players who are, by definition, free agents, but are going nowhere, we
Likely.
think.
Don't rule out anything in the NBA, but start out with the list. Number one.
Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, Clint Capella, Zach LaVine, Yusuf Nurkic, Dwayne Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, and Tony Parker.
They're going nowhere. Three guys they're tied to their franchise: Dirk, Parker, Wade, and then three restricted free agents who are too good to go, and then Durant, Paul. Why would they leave? Basically it. Now on to the actual list. Number one.
Well, I think you know who's number one. He is the man, myth, the legend, best player in the NBA, arguably the greatest player of all time. It is LeBron James. Killian, where's LeBron James going?
He's an interesting one. Right now, as of recording this, it's looking like it's Los Angeles to the Lakers, not the Clippers, or Cleveland, stay home or whatever. There's been a lot of rumours about going to Los Angeles, kind of he's enrolled his kids in that. It's looking very likely right now. Other places like Philadelphia, San Antonio, Houston, there's a chance, but it's looking like it's Los Angeles or bust right now for LeBron James. Nothing else really to say on it.
Which will obviously have a lot of implications for all the other free agents that we'll be talking about down the list. Next up, we have Paul George, another player who's been linked with the Los Angeles Lakers, could also end up going to staying in Oklahoma, maybe going to Houston or even Utah Jazz has been a name that's been thrown up recently. But it's hard to see right now. We'll see where LeBron James goes. If he doesn't go to the Lakers, I think the Lakers have to go after Paul George. Magic Johnson said if he doesn't get one or two of these stars, namely being James, George and Leonard via trade, that he will resign. And I think that's a big statement to make, but you can see exactly why he's making it. And I can very much see Paul George going to the Lakers.
Yeah, he's expressed a lot of interest in them over the past few years, but OKC is in an outrageous place. They did decent this year with Westbrook and Steven Adams, but Carmelo Anthony picking up his player option might shy him away from OKC. But, they have no money to give to anyone else. So next player on the list, another guy who might go to the Lakers, DeMarcus Cousins. Very interesting player. He hasn't really said much about his free agency. With LeBron James and Paul George, they've dropped hints about, going to the Lakers or wherever. DeMarcus Cousins hasn't done much, but again, he's linked with the Lakers, just like every free agent out there. He'd fit in very well that center role. They have Brook Lopez or Julius Randle, both free agents, but he'd be best replacement possible, really, for them. Other places, he could stay in New Orleans. They did well in the playoffs without him. Imagine what they could do with him. And Washington is another place that's been kind of mentioned with that as well. He'd be a great player to fit in. Big three with John Wall, Bradley Beal. Fit the center role that's now gone with Marcin Gortat, who was recently traded. Be a very good player for either three of those franchises. I think Los Angeles is a place, especially if LeBron James and Paul George go there, looking at a super team.
Yeah, another team that DeMarcus Cousins has been linked with is the Dallas Mavericks, because they're in the market for a centre, but it looks more likely that the player that they will look for as their number one target for that position is DeAndre Jordan. He is currently with the Clippers. He can re-sign with them, but it doesn't look as if he will, or if he does, it'll be sign and trade. I think he's due good money, but he wants out, and of course you'd want out of that Clippers team. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. And the Dallas Mavericks, good young team, definitely playoff team in a couple of years' time, maybe even the season after this one up and coming. And DeAndre Jordan probably be a perfect fit, athletic centre, probably the most athletic out of the centres in the league right now. And, he's maybe not been at the same level this year as he has been in previous seasons, but he could definitely rejuvenate himself in a new team.
Yeah, a lot of people have pointed to his kind of, lack of good play last year, to the fact that Chris Paul was missing. He needs a good point guard beside him, but, there's Luka Doncic in Dallas right now. He was traded for Trae Young, obviously, on trade deadline, so he's a pretty good passer. He could fit in well with DeAndre Jordan, kind of throwing lobs. New Lob City in Dallas, possibly.
Another player who could be a part of sign and trade package is Aaron Gordon of the Orlando Magic, Killian.
Yeah, very interesting player. I said a few months back, actually, I think one of our first episodes, that Aaron Gordon will be traded this summer. It's looking very likely right now. Orlando would be absolutely stupid to not sign and trade him. If Indiana's been talked about a lot, if they're offering him 20 million, why wouldn't Orlando match that and then trade him to Indiana? But you never know with Orlando. They're a crazy franchise. But sign and trade is the most logical thing here. It's likely what will happen. I said about Indiana, he'd fit in really well with their young team with Oladipo, Sabonis, Turner. A couple of those might be in the trade. Definitely not Oladipo anyway. But he'd fit in really well. Athletic, he'd fit in with Oladipo. And he's developing a jump shot similar to the player he's compared to the most, Blake Griffin.
Aaron Gordon is he's a pretty unique talent in the league right now. Obviously the player you're comparing him to, Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin isn't the same Blake Griffin right now as he was a couple of seasons ago. Obviously been hampered by injuries. But Aaron Gordon, he has the potential to play for anywhere in the league. But realistically, it looks as if Indiana is the most likely option. Next up, we have Julius Randle. He is currently with the Lakers. He is a restricted free agent, but it looks as if there's absolutely no chance that they will try and keep him because of the players that they are targeting this summer and potentially next summer as well. Julius Randle, one of the best young centres in the league. He's bound to get paid in around the 18 to 20 million and that's just not what the Los Angeles Lakers can afford right now. The big question is where he might go, and he can go anywhere in the league. It's impossible to judge where he could go.
Yeah, we've said them a lot, but Dallas is a decent option for him. If they don't get Cousins, they don't get Jordan, Capella gets signed by Houston. Julius Randle's a decent option for them. He's not exactly a centre, more of a power forward, but he can still play that role. He's a big guy. In terms of muscle, he's about 6'8", but he's a big, strong guy. He can, bruise it with the best of them in the league, and he's a very good player. We've seen he's a bit of a kind of point center to him, so he'd be a good player for Dallas to pick up, but he could literally go anywhere, except for the top teams in the league.
Next, we've Jabari Parker. It looks as if, he is a restricted free agent as well. Milwaukee can afford to keep him, but there has been rumblings that maybe he isn't happy at Milwaukee, didn't play to his potential this season, and he had injuries as well. But I feel like there is a good chance that he will end up staying there. Give new coach Mike Budenholzer a chance. His team basketball can get other players than Giannis involved in the game. I think Jabari Parker could be in for his best season yet if he does stay put.
Yeah, he's a good place for him in Milwaukee. I could definitely see him staying there. He is a restricted free agent, so if they want him, he's staying no matter what, as long as they want to pay him the money, of course. But it's similar to Aaron Gordon. If Milwaukee doesn't want him, if Parker doesn't want to go to Milwaukee, they'd be stupid not to do a sign and trade if they can afford it. It's just a logical thing to do to get a few assets back for the player that you're losing. I do think he'll stay in Milwaukee, though. He just fits well with them.
Isaiah Thomas is next on the list. He's the season before last, he was one of the best players in the league, dropped in around 30 a game. He was doing absolutely amazing. Then he got injured his hip in the playoffs, came back this season. He started off with Cleveland, didn't play many games there, some of it because of the injury, and then he got traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. Did fine with the Lakers, but with the way they're looking, they don't want to keep him. Because with Alonzo Ball, but it's very interesting where he could go. He can probably fit anywhere and do a good job anywhere, but there's not really been any teams coming out saying we want Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, he'll definitely get signed no matter what. He did have a bit of a down year last year, but he showed that he's a hell of a player in Boston, averaging nearly 30 a game as the main option on their team. But a few teams I've seen thrown around as good places for him: San Antonio. He'd fit in well, maybe a bit of a Tony Parker replacement. He's still staying there, but he's a good scoring guard, pretty quick. Maybe not as quick as the hip injury, but he could still fit there. I've seen Philadelphia as well. Maybe if they're not too confident in Markelle Fultz, he could be the guy to step up. But with the way Fultz's, workouts have been going this summer, I don't see them taking up any kind of point guard. It's been outrageous. Los Angeles isn't crazy option. If they don't get LeBron James, Paul George, whoever, I do think they will try to re-sign him. He's a good player to kind of,
stay under the wing.
He kind of helped out Lonzo Ball get experience in the NBA, that kind of thing. So, but even if LeBron James goes, he might take a pay cut, try and get a ring in Los Angeles. But he could really go anywhere. He'd fit anywhere as a good scoring point guard. One of the best 6 men in the NBA on his night.
Next, we have Tyreke Evans, another guard. He is a restricted free agent with the Memphis Grizzlies. Very good player. You could see why he'd want out of Memphis. But obviously, of course, they can keep him if they want to. It's just a matter of, will they try and keep him in the team? Will they sign and trade him? They can pay him. I don't think they've massive contracts. One team he could end up going to potentially is the Pelicans, maybe.
He used to play for them. Could be a bit of a reunion, maybe. But, Tyreke Evans, he had an absolutely incredible year. His best year since his rookie year, when he won Rookie of the Year over Steph Curry a good while ago. He will get a fair bit of money. I say about 15 million. He had a very good year, averaging 19, 5 and 5 on a pretty poor Memphis Grizzlies team, to be fair. But again, he's the kind of player who could fit anywhere in the league. Some teams, you said New Orleans, he'd fit well as a kind of ball handling wing. Memphis wouldn't be a bad option either. San Antonio, they could always use a guy like that, maybe a bit of a replacement to Rudy Gay or even Kawhi Leonard. It's looking likely he'll be traded. But again, Portland, maybe they signed Evan Turner a few years back to be the ball handling wing. That didn't work out. Maybe Tyreke Evans is the option for them there.
Enes Kanter of the New York Knicks is a free agent, although he does have a player option of worth about $18.5 million. He'd be a fool not to take that sort of money, because I highly doubt he's going to get paid that money anywhere else. But if it's a case that he wants to leave for basketballing reasons, where do you think he'll go, Killian?
Again, anywhere. He'd fit absolutely anywhere. There's a lot of good teams around there that could use a centre. There's San Antonio. Maybe they're not looking too great at centre. Pau Gasol's only getting older. They might look at Enes Kanter. He's a very good offensive centre. Not great defensively, but, in the right system, he might be able to do a bit of a job. There's plenty of teams around the league who could use a centre like Enes Kanter. Again, Dallas, if they're really desperate, might look at him as the option for them. He could get a decent amount of money there as well, but like you said, I don't see why he wouldn't take the $18.5 million player option he has to stay in New York. It's just too much money to give up for him, really.
Avery Bradley, he is of the LA Clippers. On paper, he only played, I think, a single game for the Clippers before he got injured. He was traded to them early enough in the season as part of a deal for Blake Griffin. He's made it very, very, very clear that he doesn't want to be in LA. He's playing very well in Boston last season before he moved to Detroit via trade which involved Marcus Morris. It'll be very interesting to see where he goes. He can play anywhere. He's very good, versatile enough player. But it's certainly not going to be the LA Clippers.
No, he's, he'll be pretty cheap, I'd say, after the year he had. He didn't have a great year in terms of playing, and then you said he got injured in Los Angeles, but he can definitely go back to the level he's playing at in Boston, where, one of, not the best defensive guard in the league, pretty decent three-point shooter, and a very underrated scorer as well. He, we've said time and time again, a player like Avery Bradley, a 3-and-D player, he can fit anywhere in the league, but somewhere I'd be interested to see him is Denver, where he could be a bit of a kind of mentor to the young guys and Jamal Murray and Gary Harris, and he'd be the defensive presence among those two offensive stars. He'd be a very good fit for Denver, but anywhere for a guy like Avery Bradley.
Another player who literally every team in the league could use is JJ Redick. He's one of the best shooters the league has seen. Definitely one of the best right now. He got paid big money, probably more than he deserved, and $23 million from the Philadelphia 76ers, although he proved his worth, and he was worth every penny to them. Not only was he a great shooter, he's a leader, with his experience, with his age. It's hard to see where he might get that money anywhere in the league this season, but nobody expected it last year either. I can see the Sixers going after him again. I know they still want to leave cap space in case they want to sign one of the bigger free agents, but they will certainly want to keep JJ Redick in the team. It's just a matter of whether JJ Redick wants to be part of a very good team, or if he wants to get paid, maybe he wants to chase a ring. Imagine he could go to Golden State, add another quality shooter there, and they just, it's hard to see how anyone would beat them. Again, with adding another player of that level, it's impossible to rule out JJ Redick going to any of the big teams. I don't see him going to somewhere that's outside the playoff chase, no matter how much money they offer, but, money does talk in the league. Next, we have Elfrid Payton. He was supposed to be a restricted free agent, but the Phoenix Suns have not offered him any contract, so he is unrestricted. He can go anywhere, and I think he'd be a very good fit for nearly any team in the league at point guard, Killian.
Yeah, very good young point guard. He's very good defender. He's kind of viewed as a younger Rondo, that kind of thing. Triple-double threat on every given night. He's developing a jump shot as well. That was the absolute main weakness in his game, but it's getting better. I believe he shot around 36% from three last year, which is very respectable, especially for a point guard. But, Phoenix isn't looking like the option. They clearly don't want him there. Why wouldn't you make him a restricted free agent if you wanted him? But he could, again, fit anywhere. You're looking at teams like Denver who need a defensive guard. Why not Elfrid Payton? He fits in well with them as well. He could be the ball handler, where I see Jamal Murray is more of a shooting guard scorer. Elfrid Payton could be the ball handler in that team, definitely. He's just a good fit for any team who needs a young point guard to kind of lead their offense.
Marcus Smart of the Boston Celtics is a restricted free agent this summer. It'll be very interesting to see if he actually does end up playing for Boston next season, because he could end up signing for another team. He could end up being part of a trade for Kawhi Leonard. But obviously, if Boston can somehow manage to keep him and trade for Kawhi Leonard without having to make Marcus Smart a part of that deal, Boston are in the driver's seat for easily to give the Warriors the best run this season.
I mean, two of the best defensive players in the NBA right now on the same team. That sounded scary, but the main goal, I think, for the Celtics this summer, sure, there's Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, whatever, but I think it's keeping Marcus Smart. He's too valuable to the team to just let away without, trying to at least get him back. As a Celtics fan, I hope we get him back, but you never know what might happen. I've mentioned them a lot as kind of a potential team for some of these players, but Denver need that young guard kind of defensive presence, and Marcus Smart, I think, he's the best defensive guard in the league, so he'd fit in so well in that team. And Marcus Smart goes to Denver, that is a scary team for the future, or even just right now. Absolutely amazing team in Denver.
Apparently Milwaukee are also very interested in Marcus Smart, but again, he's one of the most underrated players by a lot of the casual fans in the league. Don't realise just how good he is, but he is that good, and he is going to get paid somewhere, and that's for damn sure. Next, Rajon Rondo, former Boston Celtic, currently with the New Orleans Pelicans, unrestricted free agent of course. A very accomplished player and played unbelievably well in the playoffs. Could definitely see him staying with the New Orleans Pelicans. Of course, he could go anywhere and provide leadership on and off the court. One of the best passers the league has ever seen. And of course, any team, maybe his scoring will let him down a little bit, but because his passing is so good, it doesn't really matter. If he's in a team with shooters, then it takes the load off Rondo to take those shots himself. It'd be very interesting to see where he goes this summer, but I could definitely see him staying put in New Orleans.
Yeah, definitely. He did so well in New Orleans with Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday. Obviously, they swept the Blazers in round 1 and put it up to the Warriors in round 2, though they did lose in 5, I believe. They still gave it everything they had. Rondo's still a very good player, as he's getting along in age, but he can still contribute. He could go anywhere. I'd love to see him in San Antonio just to see what would happen there. The clashing minds of Greg Popovich and Rondo. Rondo's, kind of known for beefing with his coaches because he doesn't think that they know enough about basketball. But, love to see what would happen there in San Antonio with Greg Popovich. But I definitely think he might stay in New Orleans, but who knows? He went to Chicago a few years back. God knows what he'll do this summer.
Next up, we have the Miami Heat shooting guard, Wayne Ellington. A lethal shooter, obviously the most valuable asset in the league. You're shooting. Miami will do everything they can to keep him, but of course they have a lot of big contracts, and it will be hard to pay him the adequate money while still trying to keep room for maybe to sign other free agents who aren't currently part of the team.
Yeah, like you said, shooters are so valuable in today's NBA. He will be heavily, touted towards the kind of end of free agency once all the stars are gone. Every team will want a guy like Wayne Ellington. He could stay in Miami without it. Obviously, they do like him. I know Miami Heat fans like Alex love Wayne Ellington. and the kind of shooting he brings to the team. But like we said with shooters, who knows? They fit everywhere. It's so easy to just throw a shooter into your lineup and they just fit so well. Wayne Ellington will definitely get a decent amount of money this year. Who knows where it'll be.
Rodney Hood is a restricted free agent. He is currently with the Cleveland Cavaliers after getting traded from the Utah Jazz mid-season. Didn't play awful well for the Cleveland Cavaliers up until the NBA Finals, but when he got his chance, he certainly showed what he's worth and what he could do. He was being touted at the start of the season as being a potential Most Improved Player winner. It didn't work out. But with Cleveland, I think they'd be fools not to sign him.
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell had something to say about Rodney Hood's, Most Improved Player case, but he was viewed as Gordon Hayward's replacement for a reason. He's a very good scorer at the guard position. He's about 6'5". He's decently athletic. He can shoot the ball. We all know that. I think Cleveland would be stupid to let him go, especially if they lose LeBron James, because they need something. They need some kind of young guy who might do something for them. Who's to say that next year Rodney Hood doesn't play out of his mind, make the All-Star game? Then Cleveland would be glad they made him. We didn't think Oladipo would do it. Why can't Rodney Hood? That kind of thing. They need to keep him if they lose LeBron James. They just don't have a good enough team to be able to reject good young players like Rodney Hood.
Next up, another Utah Jazz alumni. He's Lance Stevenson. They could have given him an offer, but they're letting him go. He's not on massive money. He played very well for them throughout the season. The playoffs been very loyal to them. Or sorry, not the Jazz, the Pacers, I should say.
Where are you going?
Got confused with the colours, man. Anyway, Killian, where will Lance Stevenson end up?
He's a very interesting player. We know Lance. He's a very funny guy, but he played out of his mind in the playoffs on LeBron James. He didn't do an incredible job defensively, but he did everything he could, which is all you can ask of a player going up against LeBron. I would have thought that Indiana would want to keep him. He'd want to stay in Indiana, but apparently not. But, he's a very good player. He's a decent ball handling guard. He's a good defender. We've seen it. Not the greatest shooter, but he can do it a little bit. He can do a bit of scoring as well. Wherever he goes, I hope he isn't one of the main options on the team. That might sound crazy, but we saw it a few years back. When he played incredible in Indiana, he got a chance to shine in Charlotte, and that was not pretty, to say the least. So I hope his kind of bench role would be perfect for Lance Stevenson under a decent coach, like one of the better coaches in the league. You're looking at Popovich, Stevens, someone like that, Terry Stotts maybe. He could do very well as a ball handling wing, that kind of role, especially kind of 3-and-D, that kind of thing.
Second to last on the list, we have Rudy Gay of the San Antonio Spurs. He's not on massive money, about 8 million or so. He can literally go anywhere. He only came to the Spurs this season. I thought that he'd definitely be staying, but it certainly looks like there's a good chance that he could end up somewhere else.
Yeah, I think Gay went to San Antonio as a bit of a ring chase. They were viewed as pretty likely, team to win the championship last year, but we all know how that turned out. He could really go anywhere. I think he is interested in kind of chasing a ring though, so he might look at some of the better teams in the league. You have Boston, Philadelphia, Houston, Golden State. A few of those maybe not too likely, but he's a very good player. He's a decent scorer. He can handle the ball. He can pass the ball. He can really do everything on the basketball court. So teams will definitely look after him, and he'll be getting a decently cheap contract. Around 10 million, I think, is his value in the NBA.
Last but certainly not least, we've Derrick Rose of the Minnesota Timberwolves. He technically played for 3 playoff teams this past season.
So good.
Cleveland, Utah, and Minnesota. He actually played very well for Minnesota in the playoffs, albeit they lost in the first round to the Houston Rockets. Maybe it wasn't his most efficient performance, but he certainly got buckets, and it's the best basketball Derrick Rose has played in a long, long time.
Yeah, there was questions after he got released by the Jazz, like who would sign Derrick Rose. Teams didn't seem too interested in him. Minnesota took the kind of bite of the bullet, and it definitely worked out for them. When Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns, they weren't playing too well in the playoffs, Derrick Rose stepped up and he had very good games for them. So I definitely think at least that playoff performance will earn him a contract in the NBA. Not a huge amount of money, again, I'd say 10 million max, but he can contribute as a backup point guard. I've said for years I want to see him in San Antonio just because I do think Popovich can, to an extent revive his career, not to the MVP level obviously, but he can be a very good player in San Antonio. But again, anywhere that could use a point guard, Minnesota is definitely an option. He could stay in Minnesota. You know, they're pretty weak at the point guard position. Looking at Jeff Teague and then Tyus Jones, which is not very good. You need a good backup point guard, and Derrick Rose can definitely be that guy. He's not an MVP anymore, but he's still a very solid player.
Yeah, Minnesota also lost Jamal Crawford, who could also, veteran, go anywhere. Derrick Rose, he did take the veterans minimum to sign with Cleveland this past season, so he clearly just wants to play basketball. He doesn't care too much about the money, and I think he kind of has to take that approach these days. I can definitely see him staying in Minnesota. It was his former coach, Tom Thibodeau, who took him there. He gave him, a chance, and I think he couldn't have performed much better if he tried.
No, he did very well in Minnesota. Be excited to see where he goes this summer.
And that about wraps up our free agency preview. Make sure to like and subscribe to Team Eurostep on YouTube. Check us out on social media. We're Team Eurostep on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We're also Team Eurostep on Patreon, so if you enjoy our content, please become a patron. We'll be back again next week with some more NBA to talk. Until next time, it's going to be a goodbye from Killian.
Yeah.
And a goodbye from myself. Goodbye.